of this, right? Because it does seem like,
well, if you support Donald Trump, it's not because you're pro-crypto, it's because you don't care about marginalized communities. That was what they got on anyone in tech, and that's how they kept everybody in line. Because they had full narrative control of, if you support this evil man, this bigot, this racist, this xenophobe, this misogynist, this ist, you are a bad person. And how can your team even look you in the eye, much less your customers? That was the play. And so you really only have, you have two options after you're on stage like that. You can say like, I didn't know I was going to be on stage. My bad. I just want us to have like a bipartisan consensus around crypto. Okay. Congratulations. You just walked away from someone that just gave you an olive branch. Or two, double down. I know all these issues hold. You're not going to bull me into a corner. This is right for the industry, but also on a bunch of other dimensions, your arguments are bullshit.
But a lot of the other crypto industry executives maybe broke for Trump. They were still funding or looking for inroads to the Democratic Party until very late in the summer.
Well, yeah, I mean, a bunch of people broke for Trump, and then the second that Biden dropped out, Queen Kamala, oh, it's a morning in America. It's a brand new day. She's so nice. And all we need to do is get in a room with her. I'm sure she'll be very reasonable. And you felt all of the energy start to go immediately back to, well, it's not Biden again. It's going to be a new sheriff in town. And, we have to really think about, we could have a younger, more forward-thinking Democratic leader that's actually going to engage with us. I was like, okay, well, show me where the evidence is.
There was an effort to get her at the Bitcoin conference.
Right? In office, right? Yeah. So that was...
But where does this become a culture wars component? Because there's a lot of other industry executives who did break right, but they didn't maybe wade into the issues like maybe you did in terms of making it about women, making
when
about...
did they?
Sorry?
When did they break right?
Much later. But what I want to know is, the culture war. When did the culture war part of it become something that you cared about? Because it does seem like you, as much as you care about the Bitcoin and crypto industry stuff, you also care about the culture war, the testosterone, the men, the women.
We'll get to that. So first of all, I actually don't care about the culture war stuff as much as people would think from reading my tweets. What I really want.
You use the language.
Yes, to win an election, right? Because, and I can talk about like the electoral math. I mean, it speaks for itself, right? The election swung and hinged on young men coming out in droves and offsetting the young women vote, point blank. Every single major demographic went for Trump except for young women. Married men.
And it's clear why, right? Because of the abortion.
Well, so that was one thing, and that was what everybody was, would basically pin on you and like project on you, like if you are supporting
it's a women's rights
Donald
issue.
Trump, then you're actively saying that the overturn of Roe v. Wade doesn't matter. And I was a hard ass on that issue because my argument was, you don't understand how the American constitutional system works if you think that electing Kamala Harris is going to change that Supreme Court decision. Yeah. Unless you're going to eliminate the filibuster to try to ram that law through, and unless you are going to pack the Supreme Court, which are DEFCON 5 levels.
I gave that argument at the time, but did you feel like you had to use that language? Why did you use that language? Because other people didn't. Like, I'll contrast you with David Bailey and say that David didn't wade into the culture war stuff. He didn't weaponize kind of sex or race or that kind of stuff.
So first of all, I only did this after I knew it was going to be out, right? So post Mar-a-Lago, I had sat down with my team and said, look, I'm going to get all the flack for this. There's a chance that I'm not going to be able to run this company anymore. Because even if we don't get public pushback, customers are going to start backing away. There's going to be executives that start to just fucking seethe and resent me. And they did. Yeah. But the worst thing that can happen is for that to happen and for no one to ever say anything. So, in those couple of months, post Mar-a-Lago and before my official announced exit, I had already kind of prepared my team, my board, and also just started to try to take out as many of these Democratic operatives that were operating in bad faith in Silicon Valley as I possibly could, right? I was like, I'm going to be a fucking suicide bomber to take as many of these guys out as possible. These scumbags that were doing every single dirty trick that you could possibly imagine to silence founders that would dare have the audacity to come out and be pro-Trump, drag them into the deep water.
Mm.
I was like, you know what? Someone has to pick this fight. We're already going to get all the negative blowback. I'm already going to get called every name in the book. Our team is going to suffer. I need to do my succession planning right now because at the end of the day, I'm not going to back down on pure principle, but also because it wouldn't be in our best interest. The only thing that matters for this industry and for our company is making sure that there is a change in the White House. That is the single highest leverage thing that I felt that I could do at the time and that I did do. And part of that was shifting the Overton window, hammering some of these guys. And that's why there was loaded language. And this bore out in the polls, right? The Democrat Party to this day has a masculinity issue. It's a loser for them. They lost men, probably for a generation. So every bit of messaging for those few months, this guy's a spineless coward. This guy's a bitch. Like, do you want to, wake up in the morning and tell your kids that you were like so-and-so, or do you want to be a man and try to like fix the country? Just relentless. But if you know that you're going to go that direction and you know you're going to.
But do you actually believe that, or do you just think it's good messaging? Like it's just you're using a strategic messaging.
I mean, obviously it's messaging, right? Obviously.
Because you said a few things that really rankled people. One was die in a fire.
When did I say it?
When did you say it?
40 minutes after he was shot. Right now, 55% of Democrats think that it would be justified if he was assassinated.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
55%.
Yeah. Are you surprised by that?
I'm the problem for clearly tweeting something of hyperbole, which was at this point, fuck you. He just got up and said, fight, fight, fight after he got shot in the head. He's doing this for the right reasons. He's, a brave leader. And you've been throwing everything at this guy and everything at everybody that supports him. You know what? Gloves are off. Yeah. Should I have tweeted it? No. But at that point, I had already made my decision that I was going to be out at Masari. So again, if you look at this through the lens of, I am going to shoot at everybody that I think is operating in bad faith, and I'm going to try to take out every single opponent and marginalize them, the same playbook that they've used for a decade in tech. I'm going to use the same thing against them, and I'm going to go right for their balls and try to silence them.
But let's just take another example. I hope you get deported. This was something you tweeted about.
That was a bunch of nonsense.
But why? What does immigration have to do with Bitcoin and crypto? Why bring it into the conversation?
No, it had nothing to do with that. I mean, that's my point. At this point, I'm single-minded on what can you do in the messaging wars to essentially just give the finger to anyone and say, like, you're not going to cancel me. You're not going to shame me or kind of guilt me into like backing away from a candidate that I think should and must win for all these reasons. And like, that's it. I'm not going to apologize for any of the issues that you think I should apologize for. And immigration's a perfect one, because you'd be like, well, what about, what about this? Do you really think that you should, do you really think that like all these, you're going to deport 20 million people? No, that's not the point. But the reason that like we've lost so much ground, and the reason the country is in the shape that it is, and the working class wages have been depressed the way that they are, is because your side has thrown out the entire social contract and used emotional blackmail that works on bitchy men to basically have their way. And then, oops, they're here now. What are we going to do about it? I mean, it's maddening. I truly, truly believe that our treason laws are meaningless.
So you think you had to risk alienating women in order to make this point?
Well, the thing is, I wasn't like, what did I say that was wrong?
About what? About the immigrants?
No. I said this election is going to hinge on whether unhinged radical feminists on SSRIs come out in droves for Kamala Harris.
But there are a lot of people who would say, what does that have to do with the cause of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which want to eliminate national borders? The border is currency.
Sorry, no, you're conflating two different things. What I'm saying is, when all of that rhetoric happened, this was post me exiting.
Like Elon didn't go out and he wasn't.
This was post me exiting Masari. Like at that point, it was over.
So in your mind, you weren't representing the crypto industry when you were doing that?
No, it was, we need this guy to win the election at all costs. And you can argue with my tactics. Hey, did that move anyone one way or the other? But there was two components of that. One, can you fire up enough young men and make it safer for them to start coming outside and voicing their support? And two, can you demoralize enough Kamala Harris supporters in the process and silence them and essentially say that they're weak and pathetic for
the big conversation about the whole election, and I think, in the Bitcoin and crypto world is like, did we sacrifice our principles in order to get these wins? And people have questions about that, right? I mean, we do want to build a borderless financial system, right? That is something that doesn't have anything to do with...
Did we sacrifice our principles to get these wins? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Donald Trump is the reason that crypto has a moral crisis right now.
Well, we'll get into the future of crypto stuff, but you don't sympathize with the point of people who are saying you didn't need to conflate these things. The culture wars didn't need to come to
Losers always complain about your tactics. I should be getting a fucking thank you note from people in the industry, and I'll die on that hill. Losers will always complain about your tactics, but you know what? If you walk people through step by step, every single decision I made, up to and including being willing to step down from my own company that I ran for 7 years, and I love my team, everything was designed to get the maximum impact and clarity and good outcomes and fair outcomes for crypto. Not a handout, but something that is a sustainable base that we can build off of. And there's only a couple of people that stepped up. So I've given people my rationale for why I pursued the strategy that I did. It all boils down to one thing. Someone had to do the dirty work. And someone had to hit some of these guys in the mouth in Silicon Valley. And once you go down that road, you can't half-ass it. You can argue whether it was wise. You can argue whether was it nice? No, I wasn't nice to people. I know that. And I feel bad about that, but I don't give a shit about nice. What I would like to see is a kinder, better country that doesn't have all these structural problems that I think would have been inevitable and a path to collapse if Kamala Harris had won.